try to pick up where he left off, winning a medal in the World Championships in the most harrowing of all the alpine disciplines, the downhill. It may be August, but the snow is here, the course is tough, and the best in the world have come to Argentina to challenge it. Deep in thought, perhaps about punching it out, hoping to make some music with his skis today. Hank Cashua.
Well, Pete, you know, if anybody can do it, Doug Lewis can. He's got a wonderful attitude, and boy, is he hungry.
Here comes our first racer down the hill. It is Austrian Anton Steiner, the 26-year-old. He has never won a World Cup event despite his advanced age.
Pete, they're way above tree line down here at Las Lenas. You can see that there's nothing for the racers to gauge their speed by. They're just going full out up there at the top, and right now they come to the bottom part of the flat on the top, and they go into some very technical turns, as we referred to earlier. Now, there are 3 turns. They come into these turns, and they have to keep their weight on that downhill ski, drive their arms forward, carve it out, keep even pressure over the tunnel bump, and approaching the compression, a little side hill, and then a straight shot to the finish line.
Steiner, who finished 57th in the downhill this last season, hoping to improve on that, and starting with it right here. As he heads for the finish line, our first racer across, and there you see the time by which we will measure everybody on this afternoon. Anton Steiner of Austria at 1:49. Here is Peter Wernsberger, another Austrian, also 26 years old. He has 4 career downhill wins, 3 in 1979.
Show you how much downhill skiing means to an Austrian racer like this, Pete, and how much pressure a young competitor can put on himself. He was 2nd in the Lake Placid Olympics, so disappointed he didn't get the gold that he went into a slump for about 5 years. Real fit of depression. Finally won the 2nd downhill at Wengen last season as he comes into the tough turns down here, approaching the tunnel.
He tied for 3rd in the downhill with Alger last year, so he is making a comeback of sorts as he goes over the hump there.
Important to get that pre-jump right so you don't take too much air that slows you down, Pete. You got to get ready into a slight compression, a little side hill, in your tuck, a couple hundred yards to the finish line.
Wernsberger trying to top the time of Anton Steiner, his teammate, of 1:49.53, and he has done it by almost a full second. So Peter Wernsberger, a very fine run, the 2nd racer on the course. And here is Karl Alger, the first Swiss of the day.
A little angry that he wasn't named to the Swiss World Championship team last year, Pete. He went out, got even with him, won the first race right after the World Championships, and he's half a second ahead of the rest of the field right now.
So there is a time right there to keep an eye on Alger.
I'll tell you what he's doing, Pete. He's really standing confidently on his skis. He likes the terrain down here. He's done well in training down here in the past. He's really arcing very clean turns and carrying good speed, looking for more speed all the time as he approaches the tunnel. Hands down by his boots, a little pre-jump. Whoa, he really caught some air there, but that's not going to slow him down too much.
Alger loves this hill. It was here last summer in training runs that he made the A team for the Swiss team, jumping up from the B team. Here he comes, heading home. Will that half-second at intermediate time hold up? Look at that. A great time for Karl Alger. He is your leader right now, undisputably, out on the course.
Well, he was obviously the best skier in the United States last year, Pete. He wants to pick it up where he did after winning the bronze medal in the World Championships last year. The top part of this course, being flat and smooth and fast, really isn't to Doug Lewis's style. He likes it where it's tough, where the turns are tough, where the snow is hard, and where he can really get into his technical skiing.
2nd best intermediate time for Doug Lewis.
He's half second out. He's really going to have to eat up the bottom part of this course now. He really is staying in his tuck well. He's carrying good speed into the turns at the bottom. He's really skiing smooth, got good weight on his downhill ski. You don't see much snow flying up, which signifies that the racer is overturning and causing too much friction. Little step in between the gates there, back in his tuck, over the pre-jump. He really carried some speed off that jump, Pete.
His good training runs here were not false impressions, and Doug Lewis is moving it.
It looks like he's going to have a good time.
The time to beat belongs to Karl Alger, 1:47.74, and Lewis is in 2nd place right now behind Karl Alger. A fine run for Doug Lewis. Great second half on the bottom, as you indicated, the technical part, and he really did the job. On the course now, though, another tough Swiss, Peter Muller, the veteran of 27 years old. He was 2nd in the downhill standings last season.
Peter's always a factor, Pete. And you know something? He's always a factor when he's on the road, away from Europe. He hasn't won in Europe since 1980, but he did win in Aspen last year, and he won in Panorama, Canada. He's really a good glider. He should eat up the top part of this course as he approaches the midway time.
When he has done, though, 10 downhill victories to his credit. His intermediate time, he has the best so far. So watch out, Alger and Lewis.
Well, let's see if Peter can keep it up on the bottom.
when you think back to last season, the tail end, when Muller had wins at Aspen and Panorama coming in here, he really has to be the guy to beat.
But it's a new year, Pete, and Peter Muller has got him sideways in these tough turns down here. He's really losing a lot of time right there. You can see the snow fly up. He flies up with his upper body. He caught some air going off that pre-jump. Now he's back in his tuck. Looks good on the side hill, but I think that cost him some time in the technical part.
Well, will the last half of the course cost him? We will find out as Muller heads for the finish line in his tuck. And there is the time to beat. And he is in third place behind Doug Lewis, behind Carl Alpiger. So right there, Peter Muller, good enough only for third. Still not a bad race on the afternoon for the big Swiss right there. I'm sure he's probably, well, not unhappy with himself, but he'd like to be where that man right now is sitting, at least anyway. Doug Lewis.
One down.
Boy, Doug Lewis, not too many times is he hanging on to second place. He has got to be a happy man right now.
Well, he's got to be pleased with that. I think he would have been pleased with just being in the top 10 the first race of the early season, people.
So a bonus finds him in second place. Will he hold on? Well, here comes another challenge. It is Bruno Kiernan, the 24-year-old Swiss.
Man after my own heart, Pete. He'd rather be playing golf right now. He's one of the few racers that didn't want to be down here ski racing, and he just caught an edge, and it cost him some time on the top part.
Kiernan with one career win. That came at Kitzbühel in 1983, so he's hungry.
He's really hungry. He's really a precise technician. You can see the way he stands on his skis very efficiently as he approaches the midway time. Going to be a little slow, though. 1.12 out, 5th place right now.
Again, remind you that Carl Alpiger is our leader with Doug Lewis in second place, followed by Peter Muller.
Bottom part of this course should be to his liking, Pete. It's very technical, as evident, and he's a technical skier, as evidenced by his win the first time he ever raced Kitzbühel in 1983. And boy, Kitzbühel is the granddaddy of them all when it comes to being a technical downhill.
That is an assignment.
Good pre-jump there. He's back down into his tuck, letting his skis run across that side hill. Good loose ankles.
1:47.74. Reminder, that's Alpiger's time, and here comes Kiernan with Heflin, the defending champion, on deck. And there he crosses the line in 5th place, 1:48.93. More than a second behind our leader, Carl Alpiger. And as we mentioned, here comes Heflin, the defending champion. What a year he had last season.
Funny story about Helmut Heflin. He used to be known as the world champion of training runs, Pete, because he won them all. But he fooled everybody last year by winning 3 races, Val Gardena, Venga, and Garmisch, and won the overall world title, and he is cooking up here. He's an excellent glider. He really stands on his skis well. He can make that turn in his tuck, and look at that. He's 2 100ths ahead at the midway time.
So we'll see how he does in the bottom half of the course. The bottom half seems to separate the men from the boys here this afternoon.
Well, it really does. You know, this course, as we said earlier, is just right for these racers this time of the year. It's not too fast. It's not too technically demanding. And they're going to be training anyway, so they might as well just be down here and racing. There's no better training than racing anyway. Heflin doesn't look like he carried great speed off that pre-jump. Some of the racers fly further than the others, but you don't know if they missed their pre-jump or if they're just not carrying as much speed.
Can he jump into the front 3? Can he jump into the number 1 spot? We'll find out as he crosses the line there. Number 3 is all he got. Doug Lewis is still safe. So the American, sitting in second place, is Heflin, the defending champion, cannot challenge him.
Skiers to come up. Artie Weirreiter, Franz Heinzer, Pyramids of Briggen. And look at Daniel Marr right now. He goes down. He just came over the top of that bump. He caught an edge, got turned inside a little bit, and he's a little bit upset with himself, I think.
More than a little bit. There is one Swiss. You know, they keep coming at you, but he is more than unhappy. And here it is how it happened.
Well, everything was just peaches and cream. He came over that bump. He got a little bit sideways, caught that inside edge, laid it down on his side just like a safe motorcycle rider would. Didn't even get a scratch.
Artie Weirreiter now of Austria, 27-year-old. He was 17th in the downhill last season. Here he is trying to pick up precious points early in August.
Boy, Hardy's been around forever, it seems, Pete. He really loves downhill racing. And he's good under pressure, too. Why do I mention that? Because there's always pressure when you're an Austrian racing downhill just to make the team. He had a very slow halfway time, though. He's 1.26 out, 7th place overall right now.
You're looking at a man who was the 1981 Downhill World Cup champion.
Well, he's had some tremendous races in his career. He does suffer, though, a little bit from a bad lower back from his upper body position. He really gets low, which is good aerodynamically, but physically speaking, it's tough on your lower back.
There's talk of him ending it after this season, and he's really preparing himself to go to the hotel in the summertime.
Well, there's always that talk, Pete. You know, these racers can just go on forever, and they will if they just get into results every once in a while.
There he comes, and here is his time right there in 8th position. So Weirreiter, full 2 seconds off the lead set by Karl Alpager, and he looks up the hill and knows he didn't do all that well. Franz Hines, another Swiss. Here they come. They just keep coming at you.
There's 7 Swiss in the top seed. That means the top 15 here. They've got it almost half dominated. There's hardly any room for the other countries, Pete.
Hines has a reputation, does he not, Hank, for being a little reckless and for falling more often than not?
Well, he does. Sometimes he gets a little impatient sometimes, and that causes a downhill racer to get tight, to over-edge, and maybe be a little bit premature in some of his judgments. And sometimes he makes some bad mistakes that cause him to fall.
Not a good mid-time for Franz Hines.
Franz looks a little bit ragged here in these turns, Pete. You see that he gets on his inside ski every once in a while, and you really lose your platform. And he flew over that bump, but not too much. It didn't affect his speed.
So he is trying to make it up down here. Then not too good mid-time will be manufactured, and the total time, no doubt, for Franz Hines of Switzerland as he comes zeroing in on the finish line in a 7th best time of 1:49.43. A reminder, Alpager still the leader with American, that's right, American Doug Lewis in 2nd position. Here is Michael Meyer, the first Italian to look at.
The Italian policeman in the summertime, he is a big man. He's strong, he's powerful. Sometimes he overpowers the course, Pete, and I think you can see that he looks a little bit ragged here. He's way outside in the soft snow. He's not quite grabbing the low tuck that some of the other racers have. It is going to show in his halfway time. Look, he's 1.85 out at halfway.
That's a 10th best, as you can see right there. Consistency, though, has been something that he has been very good at. In last season, 9 of 10 races, he finished in the top 15.
Well, he's such a big man, you know, Pete, and it's admirable for a big man to have good consistency, but he's not skiing very well here, I can tell you. He's way out in the soft snow. He misses his pre-jump there. He's just a little sloppy right now. It looks like he might be a little bit out of shape, carrying a little bit too much pasta around with him.
It is, you must remember, still August. As Meyer heads for the finish line, a 10th place finish for Michael Meyer of Italy. The 23-year-old Italian can't be too happy with what he has just seen there. Karl Alpager is still our leader here in the Andes Mountains. The 22-year-old Swiss
was well on his way to winning the World Cup last year, Pete, and he fell, and he didn't fall, rather. He won the downhill at Kitzbühel, hurt his knee without falling. 18 days later, after orthoscopic surgery to his knee, came back and won the World Championship combined downhill. He's tough.
A marvelous athlete as we get ready to check his halfway time. It is Zurbriggen right there coming into your living room. And that is 6th best, so he's going to have to carve some time off the second part of this hill.
Well, he can do it, Pete. He's the only racer since Jean-Claude Keely in 1968 to win in all 3 disciplines in one season. He's tough, he's intense, and he's really going for it here. I might also mention he's a very religious fellow. He visits the shrine at Fatima once a year, and believe me, when you get going 85 miles an hour and hit a pre-jump like this, that little extra hand on your shoulder doesn't hurt a bit.
It is amazing to me that he missed 10 scoring opportunities in those 18 days and still finished 2nd overall. As here comes Zurbriggen toward the finish line. You see the top time, it belongs to Karl Alpager, and Zurbriggen is nowhere near it, finishing in 7th place. So Alpager can take another deep breath as one. Well, there's a man that's not happy right there. He is not pleased with that time.
He'll let you know about it, too.
He's a perfectionist. Up now on the course is Conradin Katoen of Switzerland, another Swiss.
Ho hum, another Swiss downhill specialist. His best result last season was 2nd at Val Gardena in Italy. And Conrad Katoen is really gifted with a tremendous feel for the snow, Pete. He really stands on his skis well. Look how well he carved that turn, how quiet his downhill knee was as it edged his ski and carved the arc of that turn. But he's way out at the halfway time, over 2 seconds.
If Katoen goes by history, he's due for a win this year. He had his first in 1981 in a downhill, and his second in 1983, that at Val d'Isère.
Well, he's been in a slump, really, for the last 2 years. He's really going to have to pick it up and do something different in his training and his approach to racing. He really took some air there. It really didn't affect him too much because he kept a good aerodynamic position when he got in the air.
1:47.74 is your top time. It belongs to Karl Alpager. Remember, Doug Lewis is only 4/100ths of a second behind Alpager as Katoen comes down at number 12, almost 3 seconds behind the leader. Does this mean, is this an indication, with the course the way it is, that Alpager is safe?
Well, I think it's a pretty good indication, Pete. There aren't too many good racers to come down this first 15, though. As we look at Irvin Resch, he had no results last year because he was injured. He had an injured right knee badly last year. He's out for the season, but he's very strong. He trains on a bicycle, and he's one of those quiet, confident guys that'll get you when you're not looking.
11th is he at the intermediate time. We'll have to wonder, Hank, coming off of season of injuries, are you a little cautious on a run like this, your first of the year?
Well, you are, but you know, the summertime is the time to work those bugs out, and because there isn't the entire pressure of having to go to the next race next week and really having to keep up your intensity. You just need to give it one shot down here. But boy, to make that Austrian team is tough, and it is competitive all the time.
Erwin Resch chasing a Swiss and an American. Alpager, Lewis, 1 and 2, and you see the time of Alpager, and Resch is nowhere near it. At 150.6, that's good for 12th place. Again, almost 3 seconds behind Karl Alpager is Erwin Resch. Todd Brooker.
One of the last of the crazy Canucks, preceded by Ken Reed, Steve Poborski, and now Todd Brooker. They've won a lot of downhill races in their careers.
Todd Brooker is a man who has survived many injuries. He's had surgery on his knees 6 times, and he is a veteran ski racer.
Approaching the halfway time. Looks to be a little out, 0.83 back.
One of the best halfway times we've had in, the last 4 or 5 skiers, however. So Brooker getting something done that a few in front of him hadn't.
Well, if the course is deteriorating, Pete, he's holding up well. He's a veteran. He knows how to ski in the bumps and the chatter marks. As evidenced by last year, you know, he won a race in Furano, Japan, his last downhill race. So Todd Brooker is still a good competitor. He's still in there.
Question is, can he knock off a few precious 100ths of a second as he comes down to the wire? He'll need him because Alpager is a formidable foe right now. Here comes Brooker across the line, and the time is good enough for 9th place. Not a bad run for Todd Brooker. Next up is Mark Ghirardelli, the overall champion. He's really a crossword puzzle into his own, and quite an athlete. On the course now.
Mark Ghirardelli approaches the midway time. He's a little out at halfway. Say what you want, Pete, I got to tell you that Mark Ghirardelli manages his mind very well. He's a tough competitor. He's a good guy. He needs to win some downhill points, though, if he wants to keep Pyramids of Brigand off his back this year for the overall World Cup title. And he's really coming along well in his downhill racing. He had a bad fall a couple years ago, dislocated his knee. Credits Dr. Dick Stedman for keeping him all together. And he's approaching the finish line right here.
And here he comes. He finished 19th in the downhill standings in the World Cup circuit last season. Heading for the finish line is Mark Ghirardelli. Alpager still has the time to beat, but Mark Ghirardelli will not contend, although he does jump ahead of Todd Brooker into 8th place. And now we're looking at Marcus Vossmeyer of West Germany, 22 years old.
He really jumped up and surprised the world last year at the World Championships when he won the gold medal in the giant slalom. He approaches the midway time. He's a little slow, 1.36 out, but he's a good all-around skier, Pete. He can do it all. He's really got good fluid motion. He's young and flexible, strong, eager. He's really looking for more speed down here.
I've heard him categorized as a graceful skier. Would you buy that?
Absolutely. Look at how he carries his limbs. He really is good with his knees and ankles. Good angulation, good hands, good shoulder drop. Really took some air off that pre-jump, but it's not going to cost him too much time because he really is carrying some speed down here at the bottom part of the course.
He is moving, and there you see Marcus Vossmeyer in the time of Karl Alpager's as he zooms toward that line, and an impressive finish. He is in 5th place, 148.70, our best time in a long time, and it belongs to Vossmeyer. Well, he's got to be pleased with that. Here is Stefan Niederseer of Austria.
A young, upcoming talent in Austria, Pete. He is 22 years old, and he's had some good results last year. He was in the top 10 3 times in World Cup downhill competition. A little slow here today, though, 1.55 out at the halfway time.
We have an Austrian here chasing a Swiss and American. Alpager and Lewis, 1-2.
We ought to mention that these young racers are being coached by Dieter Bartsch, who used to coach the Swiss team. He's back in his native Austria, and he really should make some kind of dent on the Austrian effort here.
Niederseer was 15th in the downhill standings last season, so he's trying to work his way up the ladder.
He did take some air there, but he's back in his tuck across the compression, across the side hill, back down. Look at him look for more speed.
Anything for 1/100th of a second, any edge. And Niederseer comes across in 13th position. Next up on the top of the hill, we have another Austrian, Gerhard Pfaffenbickler, 24-year-old.
If Gerhard Pfaffenbickler has a problem, Pete, it's himself. It's 6 feet 5 inches tall. How'd you like to carry that much meat around down the course over 85 miles an hour?
No, thank you. Particularly when there are turns there, sharp turns at times.
Well, it causes him some problems. He's 1.38 out at the halfway time. That size really causes him to be inconsistent from year to year. It's really tough to keep that big frame in control all the time.
Give me the ideal build, height and weight for a downhill, Hank.
Oh, about 5'10", between 165, 185 or so.
Hank, how about mental makeup? Just this side of crazy?
Well, you know, Pete, a lot of these guys are just on the other side of crazy, and they eat nails for breakfast.
I can believe it. It takes that to come zooming down one of these mountains, looking for that top time. That top time belonging to Alger, and in 15th place is Bickler.
Well, if he doesn't get some good results here, Pete, he's going to be either full running tomorrow or windsurfing down in Buenos Aires.
A lot of pressure on these Austrians, is there not?
There's always pressure with the Austrian team, you know, just in training to make that team and impress the coaches.
Never a day on the beach on the hill for an Austrian. No Austrian here. This is Canadian Gary Athens.
Interesting story here, Pete. Gary Athens is in great shape. He's a strong racer and everything, but he used to get very tired when he got in his downhill tuck. They did a lot of testing on him, found out that he was indeed in good shape, but he had a problem with his thigh muscles. They were really tightening up when he got down into his tuck, so he had some surgery to relieve that tension.
And as we look in there, he is number 14 with a halfway time, so he's got to get moving.
He's got a lot of fast racing to live up to. Those crazy Canucks, as we've been talking about, owned the Kitzbühel downhill a couple years ago. They won it 3 years out of 4.
Is there any style differential between Athens and, say, Todd Brooker, the other Canadian?
They both have that Canadian hell-bent for leather style. They really go for it all the time. They never hold back. They're never cautious. They really let it run. It's like Jimmy Connors trying to hit the ball out every time.
Gary Athens on the bottom half of his run now, and you see the time. That is best. Ooh, a little wobbly leg right there.
He almost caught it.
That's what you say, caution to the wind. He almost went to the wind. We're not done yet. We've got a lot more ski racing for you, including an American on the course.
Well, the French have not done too well the last few years, Pete. They just haven't got anything going. There's been a lot of infighting in their association, and he's 8.87 out at halfway. That's not too bad for where he's running. He had some pretty good times in training earlier this week. And Franck Picard had one top 10 finish in Garmisch last year in the downhill.
Someone passed me a note that in 1966 in the World Championships, which were held in Portillo, Chile, that the French had 5 of the top 10 skiers in the downhill. It's really different now.
Led by Jean-Claude Killy, that was his first major downhill win ever for his career and really launched him into the greatness that he attained.
Franck Picard trying to get a little more out of his tuck as he comes down toward the finish line and trying to get into the top 5. That would satisfy any man. And look at that. In 5th place is Franck Picard. So he has bumped a number of skiers here with that effort right there. And here is another Frenchman, Philippe Verneret.
Verneret was 3rd in one of the training runs down here, Pete, and he had 2 top 15 finishes last year, one at Kitzbühel and one in Furano, Japan. The French, you know, have a little bit of that Canadian style in them, as he is 1.80 behind at halfway time. They really go for it. They let their skis run, good low tucks.
Verneret chasing his teammate, Franck Picard, who just surprised everybody by coming late in the competition to move into 5th place. And that certainly shows you that this is, as they say, never over until it's over.
Verneret a little bit back in the last turn, a little bit back over the pre-jump. Didn't cost him too much time, but a couple ticks is all it takes.
Verneret chasing time and his teammate across the line in 18th place. So not near the showing that Picard had from the other Frenchman, Verneret. And up next is an Italian, Oscar Delago.
And it was up. He's down and he's rolling over.
Goodness.
He lost both skis and he's down on his face into the fence, Pete.
And he is now a tourist in Valle de las Leñas.
Well, he came over and fell the same place that Daniel Meyer fell. He just caught his edge going over that. He hit so hard that his skis just explode off his body and he cartwheels, slides into the fence, but it looks like he's going to be okay. Alan Naba, 23 years old from Bellevue, Washington. He's been on the team for 3 years. He has a pretty difficult course to run right here, Pete. You see some potholes and things in the course, a lot of ruts. He's 2.3 seconds out at halfway time. You know, Ellen did pretty well on the NORAM circuit. He did pretty well on the Europa Cup circuit, the preparatory circuits that get the racers ready for the World Cup. But he hasn't had any results on the World Cup, and the coaches are looking at that. They're going to ask these guys to produce before they let them stay on the team any longer.
It's fairly easy to tell as you watch the skier come down the mountain that just the speed is not there, and I think it's going to be reflected in the times. It certainly was at the halfway mark.
Well, it's difficult for these racers to race being so far back, but I think more than the physical difficulty, there's a psychological part that needs to be approached to.
26th place for Alan Laba. And he's not particularly pleased. No, shaking his head right there. Looking up, however, to see how teammate Andy Chambers is faring as he is now on the course.
Andy had a tough year last year. He suffered torn ligaments in his thumb and it needed surgery in January. And boy, that's really tough to ski race when you need all that balance and the power out of the start to race with an injured thumb. Well, Harold Schönauer, the program director, and Theo Nottig are both putting pressure on these racers to produce. They're kind of following the pattern that Bill Morrell started when he had the tactic of not filling the Olympic team just before Sarajevo without the racers producing results. It's tough on the racers, it's tough for their supporters and their families back home, but in essence, we really need to produce results, and if we're ever going to be a factor, a consistent factor in World Cup competition.
Andy Chambers was 4th in the U.S. Nationals at Copper Mountain last season, and here he comes across the line, way far from the time of Carl Alpager, in 33rd place for Chambers, so he cannot overtake Alan Laba. And Chambers' perspective at the bottom of the hill here at Valle de Flem.
Of the United States, that in itself is story. Heflin, the defending champion, in 3rd. Peter Muller, 4th, and in 5th place, the Frenchman, Franck Picard.